Hello there, Internet. How's it going? Welcome back to the show. Thanks for clicking on this one. My name is Pat Dan, and today we're here with user IDK500000009, who says, I would love it if someone drew me. This is 7 days ago, so we're a little late to the draw on this one, but I still think it is optimal time to throw a little, drawing their way. I think they'll still appreciate it nonetheless. So I think we're going to be doing a little bit of, tardy to the party action here, as some may say. Welcome back to the show. I know I already said it, but it can't hurt to welcome somebody once or twice extra. I think it adds a little bit of, extra feelings of belonging. If you make sure that person is very aware, this is where they need to be. And so that's what I felt like doing for you here, with that. Anyway, I have been fiending for some more MS Paint, so I decided, you know what, let's boot up MS Paint and do a little drawing session. We love to do a quick little one, and we enjoy, our time together. I'm sure you guys do. So let's just do what we do best and get down and dirty with a little, peach skin tone here. And try and line up some beautiful fills for our fill tool here in MS Paint. I've realized that there are like a lot more people who use MS Paint as just like their go-to drawing software than I initially thought, right? Like, I think when I started doing this series, the idea was that like, oh, not that many people are using MS Paint, so it's gonna seem more fun that I'm using it, because people are like, oh, he's using MS Paint. That's weird. I thought only like, freaks use that. But I guess it's like a much larger market than I thought. I found so many more Instagram accounts of artists that use MS Paint than I ever knew existed before. It's opened me up to an entirely new world. And I've learned so many things about myself. I haven't. I've learned nothing about myself. I've learned a couple, one or two things, I think, maybe. Just a couple. But it has been very enlightening to me to see that, like, I'm not the only one who appreciates this program for all it's worth. There was this one artist who I just recently happened upon. I think his name was Christian Young Art. So if any of you guys are looking for some MS Paint artists on Instagram, go and run up at Christian Young Art. I think that's what his name is. If I'm wrong, then it'll take you to some random other page. Which I'm sure with a name like that, it'll include art in some form. So, you'll find some art nonetheless. Maybe just not the guy I'm thinking of, but you'll definitely find a guy who's making art at the very least. So, look it up and let me know if it's the MS Paint guy or not. But I was very pleased to see that there was this guy and he was just locked in. He was doing MS Paint just because he liked it. He enjoys the program, I guess, and he decided, hey, you know what? This is what I'm going to do all my stuff in. So he does all his stuff in it. And, that's how the cookie crumbled, I guess, for him. And I'd like to think he and I are in a similar boat. One day maybe I'll reach his level of MS Paint mastery. I think he probably started in a similar way as I, seeing it and thinking, oh, this is a silly little thing I can do. And then eventually he became the GOAT of all time. He now does portraits that are beautiful, magnificent, better than anything I could ever do in any program, regardless of its limitations. Even if I had, access to the greatest copy of Photoshop with all the unreleased features, like, I still wouldn't be able to do the kind of stuff he's doing in MS Paint. So, it's all skill-based matchmaking, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. You really just got to work up to it, and it takes heart and soul, not just a dream. It takes a little more than that, which is something that I've come to realize. It takes more than heart and soul and a dream. It takes a lot to get where you want to go. I think for a long portion of like your life as a kid, you're told like, oh, you can do whatever you want, like dream big, whatever. And then you come to realize you can't actually do whatever you want, because that requires, lots of time and effort and potentially things that you don't have the capability of doing. And this is a lesson that I learned, believe it or not, from a magnificent film that you may or may not have heard of, Monsters Inc. Or actually, Monsters University, the prequel to Monsters Inc. So I think arguably a better place to learn a hard lesson from. Why go to a true blue informed source, like someone who has, I don't know, like a degree, they went to school to become like a therapist and tell you how to solve your problems. I say ignore therapy, ignore self-help, ignore everything that people shovel your way. Just watch Monsters University a couple times. It'll basically tell you everything you need to know about the world. But in Monsters University, I saw this video essay that it was talking about how in Monsters University, one of the big things that they had noticed, I forget, I wish I could plug the channel, but I have no idea who it was. But one of the big things that they had noticed was that they managed to do a decent job making it feel like Mike wasn't giving up on his dream of being a scarer. Because like they introduce it where it's like, oh, this is Mike's lifelong dream. He's always wanted to be a scarer since the age of 0.5 years old. So when we're already going into it knowing, oh, he doesn't become a scarer, he like becomes Sully's coach, right? Like we've seen the other movie, it's kind of like a letdown. It's like, oh, already I feel a little disappointed. Like I know he's not going to get what he wants. But they handled it quite well. And instead of making us disappointed, we felt like it was, a natural switch up where he just realized like, okay, maybe this whole scaring thing isn't for me. And he found something else that he enjoyed doing. And I think that lesson never really struck me in Monsters Inc. because I've only ever watched it, in a goofy, silly mood and not in a self-reflective, let's learn something mood. So looking at it from that lens, there is quite a bit to learn. There's quite a few lessons in Monsters University, and I think that's the big main one that I don't know, I had never really taken out of it. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about, but, your dreams really can't always come true. And, I hate to say it. I hate to break your bubble open and send soap particles flying everywhere. But I do think sometimes you have to concede and say, my dream is actually a little bit, out of the scope of what I actually want to do in my life. Like I've discovered that this is not where I should be and I have better things for me elsewhere. And I think that's, a beautiful lesson that Monsters University spells out perfectly for the youth, whether they know it or not. So I think it's better than any self-help book you could ever read. And hey, I don't want to diss on the self-help books. I do think the self-help books have a lot to say. I think books in general are great. I do believe that there is something that has been lost a little bit and it has to do with reading books. Like in this new generation, which is my generation, of course, there is like a certain aura of intellectualism that has been kind of lost to time. And I do think reading a little bit of book every now and then could potentially aid in fixing this issue. Not entirely. Like I don't think the issue would be completely fixed if everyone started reading a book a month or whatever. But I do think if people started reading a book every once in a while, it would make things better. And I have believed that for a while. The only issue with me saying it out loud and the reason why I don't typically say that out loud is because I don't really read books. So it was a little embarrassing for a while. For a hot minute there, I was like, I don't want to say something like this if I'm, in saying it, admitting to everyone else that I'm stupid. But now I've realized, you know what, just be stupid if you're going to be stupid, and no one's here to tell you what to do and what not to do. Like, just live your life, And that inspired me to speak it aloud to you here today. But I have also kind of made a mental, promise to myself that I will read more books. And so in doing that, I was like, okay, if I'm going to start reading books, might as well boot up the Kindle again, right? Everyone loves the Amazon Kindle. The one device for all your reading needs. It's the perfect reader's device, right? The Amazon Kindle is the solution to anything that you could ever have issues with in the reading process. You know, you got your dictionary right there integrated into it. You don't have to worry about flipping pages. That's all dealt with a tap of a finger. And there's no other apps on it. So you just read, and then you're not getting distracted by other stuff that might be on a device with similar capabilities. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful system, and one that hasn't really been improved upon since the initial release, right? Like every single thing that has been released in the Amazon Kindle line has kind of just been small improvements on the formula that they had already established with the first release, which was, I don't know, sometime in like the early 2000s or mid 2000s, late 2000s. I don't know, somewhere in there, right? So, of course, me being a guy who was interested in now going back to books, you know, making a change in my life, maybe doing a little bit of reading here and there, I said, okay, let's boot up the Kindle. I went to boot up the Kindle. Much to my dismay, what do I find? They have disabled Amazon Web Services for the old Kindle generation, the initial first generation releases of the Kindle. And this had happened fairly recently. It wasn't like an old development that I just hadn't caught wind of. This happened like a few months ago, which still, in terms of internet age, is basically ancient history. I'm sure you know. But I do think in terms of, you know, everything else age, like just world age, that's pretty close. Like compared to other things that have happened in the, you know, historied past of our world, like that's a thing that's pretty close to home. You know, we have for the most part, not a lot has happened in the past few. Actually, that's not true. You know, stuff happens all the time. But anyway, I was like, okay, this is a recent development, pretty interesting. And it kind of broke my heart because I started scrolling through some of the posts on Reddit about it, and they were all like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but I'm just gonna upgrade to the new one now, right? Like I mean, it's been a while. I've been holding out, and for people who have still been using the old hardware, they actually were giving out like a little discount, like, oh, if you want to upgrade to the new one, would you kind of have no choice because we're shutting down all the ability to download new books on the old one. Here's a little discount. So, I mean, kind of somewhat malicious. Also, at the same time, it feels a little nice, you know, as the consumer. It does feel nice to be like, okay, you know what? I have been meaning, perhaps, maybe you have been meaning to make a switch, and this is the thing that, you know, pushed you over the edge. So I think in that sense, it can be nice, but it is also just a little saddening to see, you know, the Kindle go away, the old Kindle. Obviously the new ones are still around, and it's pretty much the exact same thing, if I understand correctly. Like nothing has changed except, like, you know, the refresh rate and the storage and, you know, the minute specs of the thing, but overall the whole experience is pretty much exactly the same. But luckily for me, I had another Kindle that my mom had before, and that for some reason I had two Kindles. Okay, yeah, wait, I don't need to get into the semantics of it, but the other one is still functioning perfectly well. So I don't have to upgrade just yet, but I do think it will probably be shut down in the near future. So, you know, that was just something I had to get my head around. It was kind of a real point of I don't know, sadness for me over this past weekend. So I hope you can share that with me now. Just want to, you know, be suffering with others rather than suffering alone. So let me know if you've had a similar experience with your Kindle device in the recent past. I do also think that having this, you know, newfound lease on life, a desire to go back to my reading roots. I used to be a big reader as a kid. Like, I loved books. Not a huge reader, obviously. You could tell by how dumb I am. I never really was that big of a reader, but I did use my Kindle every now and then. I did enjoy the act of reading. I remember one of my big points of pride in third grade. One of my big points of pride was that on we took this test, and it was a reading test, and it told you your like your grade level. It guessed what your grade level was based on how well you did on the reading test. On that reading test, in like the third or fourth grade, I got like a 12th grade reading level, and I was like, hey guys, like, hey, I don't want to make anyone else feel bad, but like, are you seeing this thing? Like, I mean, that's pretty impressive. As a little young elementary school student, that was a trophy that I held high for the next many years. I still talk about it to this day, as you can tell. So I cared a lot about that. And as time went on, my reading level slowly dropped. Now I'm probably at a third grade reading level. So we kind of had a little bit of a Benjamin Button type development with my reading, where I got worse as time went on. Like I popped out of the womb a perfect reader. I could have, read any scientific document you gave me, any study, any journal article that you thought was too difficult for a newborn to comprehend. I could have, understood it in like 5 minutes flat. Give me 5 minutes for a 500-page essay. I could have read that. Nowadays, things have slowly degraded. If you gave me a second grade level reading, material, I think it would probably take me a couple weeks to finish that one. I'm not the best. My literacy has plummeted, but we have the opportunity to make changes in our lives. And this is a change that I'm hoping to make, coming back to literacy, coming back to books, changing my life in a positive manner. So come along with me for this journey. I started reading a new book, and in the process of reading that book, in like the first initial, musings where I was enjoying it and thinking to myself, what is so great about this? Why do I love this whole reading thing so much? What is added to my life through reading that I feel I've been missing out on previously? And I think I came to somewhat of a conclusion, right? Like I came to not necessarily a conclusion, but I developed a theory. And here's my theory. I think that reading is like the game Bloodborne. And I know I've been talking about Bloodborne a lot, okay? It's on my mind. I just beat it. So anytime that something happens in my life, I try and relate it to, when I'm a hammer, I see everything as a nail kind of scenario is what we're looking at here, obviously. But there is, I think, some credibility to this theory. And allow me to just explain myself a little bit, right? Okay? So when you are playing Bloodborne, right, it is a slow and arduous task. It takes a long time to get through a single area, and you do not get given a lot of information to go off of in terms of understanding the story. It is very sparse. So when you do get information, it's very exciting, right? Like you're like, oh my goodness, they told me lore about the game. And your initial immediate desire, I would think, is, oh, I want to figure out what this means. So you start theorizing, you start hunting, and you start finding out what the pieces of info that they're giving you mean. You're putting the puzzle together, and you're engaging with the media that you are consuming, right? Now, think about this scenario that I've just laid out for you, playing Bloodborne, and then put it at odds with the scenario where you are sitting at home, you're scrolling through YouTube on your television, which I'm sure other people that aren't just me do. I swear other people must use YouTube on the TV. and you happen upon a video and you say, oh, I want to watch this. You sit and watch it and don't think about it at all. And then it ends, and then you're like, okay, now it's time for me to go to bed, right? Like, compare those two scenarios for me. Just think about them and consider what's missing. For me, right, in my humble opinion, I think reading is the one medium, or not the one medium, but one of the mediums that is the most effective at getting you, the audience, to actually engage with what you're seeing. Which is kind of interesting. It is really interesting. Because I feel like, as a reader, much like playing Bloodborne, It is a slow and arduous task. You are having to sit down and consume the words on the page. There's no one reading it out loud for you, right? You have to read at your own pace. You have to put things together. If there's words you don't understand, you got to look them up. And if there's something in the story that doesn't make sense, you have to go back to another page and figure out, wait, did they actually say what I thought they said here? Or did they say something different? Wait, maybe this was an intentional choice on the part of the author. They wanted them to, contradict themselves at this later part in the book to show how their character has changed over the course of the novel. And you start thinking, the cogs start turning in the mind, and you start thinking, and you become an engaged listener, or an engaged consumer rather. And you start to understand why it is that the author made the choices that they made, and what it is that you're enjoying about this novel, what it is that you're consuming, what is happening in the story. You really get a more engaged understanding of the media with which you are interacting. And I think that is what we have lost in the modern age. I think the prospect of TikTok being a one-stop shop to waste away all your woes. If you have time that needs to be taken care of, you can dispose of that in an instant with one click of the application. I think that's wonderful that we have that option. I think it's great. Really, truly, I do. But I do think for people like me who have fallen so far from the grace of God, and have become such brainless, consumers, zombies of sorts, just looking at stuff on the screen, tapping not thinking about, Tom Scott comes on your screen. He tells you something about something sciencey, and you feel like you've been an intellectual today. You didn't have to do any of that thinking. He didn't present you with data, and then you had to think about what it meant. He just told you exactly what to think. And then you went, okay, I believe you. And then you were like, ha, I learned something. As opposed to, reading a study, thinking about it, and being like, how could this potentially impact us, like, on a day-to-day basis? Like, what does this mean for us as a society? And I think having that connection to the things that you learn is much more valuable than having the, former connection to the things you learn, where it's just, oh, he told me something. I believe him. He's a credible guy. Allow me to carry that with me and pretend like I've learned something, on my own of substance, when in fact you were just told by this guy who, yes, is smart and yes, is telling the truth. But, maybe you could have potentially expanded your mind a bit. And maybe in a couple weeks you'd remember the facts that you read in that article, because you thought about them rather than just being told them in a YouTube short. These are the kinds of questions that you've got to ask when you're an artist such as myself, challenging the social norms of society. I'm joking. I'm just a guy. I'm no big crazy freak. And I know that's what you're thinking. You're sitting back in your chair. You're thinking, why is this guy trying to tell me how to live my life? Why is he preaching? And why is he trying to get me to think I need to start reading? I'm not trying to do anything, bro. You can do whatever you want to do. I'm just presenting the facts. No, I'm not presenting the facts. I'm presenting my opinion. And I am, letting you know that there are other things to do other than be on YouTube like we're doing right now, which is great. I do that all the time. But I'm also, I'm struggling with it, I think. I think it's a bad thing to be on YouTube all day, every day. Which it hurts me to say. As much as it hurts me to say, I do think it's true. So you and I, together as a unit, we're having to come to grips with this, this whole YouTube is bad for you thing. And I don't think we're alone. I think there are more people out there like us, just like us, and we just have to look. We just have to look. But it is just a pretty interesting thing to think about. The idea that, like, interacting with your media is not something you do anymore. And I feel as an artist, like, that has got to be a big thing that people are thinking about all the time, right? Like, I know for me, that's a thought that I've had is like, what's the point of making something if the only people who are going to see it are going to scroll right past it within 5 seconds? Like, why? Where's the value in that? What am I adding to society? What am I adding to their lives through this thing that I made if it only exists in their life for 0.5 seconds before they decide, yeah, I've seen enough, I'm done. And then they move on. When I know in my heart of hearts, I would never say this out loud because it's a bit egotistical, but I know in my heart of hearts, this thing I've made does have something of substance to it. And I do think that if you had sat and kind of lingered on it a bit longer, maybe you take something greater away from it. That wasn't just, oh, it was a cool image I looked at. He did a good job on that one. You know, like there's more to see than just what is on the surface. And I think, you know, novels have that allure to where you as an artist can rest assured that your dedicated audience, the ones who go through with reading it, the ones who are actually interested in what you have to say, will actually have the opportunity, because they are looking for it, to take something away from it, you know, and to actually understand the intricacies of your artistic choices, you know? Like, I think that's a beautiful thing to live with as an author. I'll bet that is one of the most fulfilling things. So, you know, go out there, read a book, and don't just read it, like engage with it. I think one of the most helpful things in reading a book, like if you want to engage with what you're reading and you don't know where to start, just write stuff. Like, start writing stuff down. If you are a freak and you want to destroy your book, start writing stuff in the margins. If you want to preserve the pages that you have spent money on, you know, maybe get out a notebook and write it in there instead. But either way, as you're reading, just kind of like jot down a couple things, right? Like, be like, hey, this is an interestingly worded phrase. I wonder why they use that. I'll maybe just take note of this. Like, how does this make me feel? What does this maybe imply about the story they're telling, or about the way they want me to see this character, or about whatever it may be, right? Like, just having those kinds of thoughts, I think, can allow you to really, really enjoy a book. And I remember back in my reading days, that was when I had the most fun with it, is when I actually thought about what I was seeing, and I was like, you know, there's a lot here that I wouldn't have noticed if I was just, you know, reading through it as fast as I could so that I could say I read the book, which is definitely something I've done. I think something probably many people have done. And it's not, you don't have to be ashamed to admit that. I think it's a normal thing to do. But there are other ways. There are alternative methods that you could perhaps implement into your everyday life. So I just thought that was an interesting thing, and I enjoyed that little thought exercise. So I thought I would share it with you today, and I hope you agree that it has brought some, you know, something interesting to your life. Maybe you can start reading. Maybe we can start a book club. If you guys want to join the Discord and like we start a book club together, that would be fire, bro. That would be utterly fire, and I would be so pleased if we were to do something like that. So, you know, let me know. I know King would definitely love that. He's kind of a weirdo, but he also reads like weird stuff. Like he's open to reading weird things. Which I don't know if I'm open to. Like, he's like, yeah, this weird book about weird stuff, I'll read it. But whereas me, I'm like, no, this weird book about weird stuff, that's a little too much for me. That's where we differ, really. Just two sides of completely different coins. I don't know why I said that. That doesn't make any sense, but I thought it was funny. So I hope maybe you thought so too. How am I gonna salvage this, dude? I'm having a lot of trouble here, if you can't tell. I also happened upon something very exciting, something very cool that I thought I might share with you on my Instagram feed a little bit ago. I thought I'd drop, something silly here just for you to see. This is this guy that I found on Instagram. What's his name? I can't read it. I can't read his name. It's too. Hang on. Let me. Okay, I accidentally stopped recording. Hang on. Let me try and read that. Inland Drive. Inland Drive is his name. I found him on Instagram through a reel, right? And I found him on a reel. I'm just gonna play the reel for you. This is the reel that I saw of him on Instagram when I was doing my casual daily scrolling. If I can get it to play. Hang on. Here goes. It's him, and he's listening to music, and he says season 4 of music is so peak. And it's the Epic of Gilgamesh. I just thought that was hilarious. I'm a guy who appreciates funny things, and I thought that was one of them. I thought that was a funny thing because when I saw that, I can't lie to you, I was laughing. I was laughing quite heartily, and some giggles did leave my mouth, and I went, haha, that's a pretty funny one. So I liked it, and then I moved on. And then the next day, on my allotted daily scrolling time, I went back onto Instagram, as one does, and I was like, hey, let me see what they're going, what the guys are doing, what's going on. So I went to my Instagram homepage, and I saw this pop up, and it was the same guy, and this time he was talking about season 5 of music. So this went on for the better part of last week, where I was, seeing him update season 5 of music, season 6 of music. I think he's up to season 10 of music now. And it's this formula where he basically just listens to old songs in sequence, like going through the history of music. And he started with like prehistoric, like caveman grunts, and has moved up to, like whatever Chinese dynasty he's on now. And he like makes funny remarks, and he eats popcorn, and he's like, haha. And there was one that I thought was really funny where he was like, season 6 of music is so good I had to get merch. And then he's wearing like one of those like straw hats that we always like associate with people from like old rice farms, I guess, in China. Like I thought that was a funny one. I don't know. I found that one quite humorous myself, but yeah, I appreciated this not only from a like this is funny standpoint, but also from a this is genius standpoint. Because I went to his TikTok. I was like, okay, this guy must be popular, right? I went to his TikTok. He has almost no followers. The guy is niche. He's niche in every aspect of the word. His Instagram has a little bit more of a following, but judging by the quality of the video, like and the thoughtfulness and ingenuity of it, I was like, okay, this guy has probably done this kind of thing before. Like this is clearly a tried and true format for him. He loves the game, and this is a guy with, probably a couple million followers. He's doing his thing. The guy has like 500 followers on TikTok, Brody. Like this is an underground menace. And I feel like you don't really see underground artists doing this kind of like smart promotion where it's like, yes, they are, they're doing silly stuff, and they're doing like stuff on like short form content platforms to promote their music, which is something that you kind of have to do as a music artist nowadays. But they're doing it in a way that I feel does not taint their, artistry. Like a lot of people, and I'm not going to name any names here, right? But the guys who will go on TikTok and say, did I just make the song of the summer? Oh my God, guys, I just dropped my new LP. This is your sign that you can use this as a pass to say that you are in on the ground floor, something huge. And you see these and you're like, oh, I feel a little bad for the guy. I'm going to listen to his music because maybe he has something there. I don't know. Maybe he has something there. And at least me personally, I'm like, okay, I feel a little bad for that. Like he has had to go out of his way to kind of, lose a little bit of his dignity in the hopes of maybe getting a couple more music fans. At the very least, I can indulge his fantasies. And the music is never that exceptional. It's always very very samey. It's always pretty much the exact same stuff you'd expect from somebody who makes something like that. But this guy, I haven't listened to any of his music, so I don't actually know what it sounds like. But he, at the very least, has adopted a new promotional method of listening to old music and saying it's season blank of music that actually I find quite humorous. I don't know how long I'm going to find it funny for. I don't know, how long the internet is going to find it funny for. But for me, this seems like a timeless classic. I could watch these videos over and over and over again. I have this one friend who keeps constantly every day, day in, day out, referencing this one video where this guy, he's like a clearly, middle-aged man. He is reacting to a video where it says, "Would you ever film like adult content?" And he goes, "No." And then on the other screen, another version of him from a different reaction pops up, and he goes, "Yes." And he goes, "What?" And then he goes like, buy my film Funky Unk Meets the Spunk at Walmart. And it's like, it's a pretty funny video, I'll admit. It's a funny video, and it's quite humorous, and if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But it's also every day, every single day on the daily, and never stops. And it's like, okay, please, 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 can we move on? But I think in this instance, this particular formula of video, I will be referencing this for years to come. This will be my thing where people are like, oh, shut up about this guy. He's on like season 500 of music. I know, I understand. He's doing the same thing every video. What's funny about this? What's funny about this? It's the same thing every video. And I'm going to be like, shut up, bro. Enjoy the art. Enjoy the art. So this is my thing that I'm going to give myself a pass on, and I'm going to allow myself to think is funny, because I do really, truly in my heart and soul think it is quite hilarious, quite humorous. So let me know if you agree. I was really hoping to show this and start a new trend where everyone starts doing this exact video. And I don't want people to do anything different either. I want everyone to do literally the exact same thing, bar for bar, like word for word, copy exactly what he does, except it's just your face instead of his face. And like, you just go down the line, season 1 of music, season 2 of music, and this just becomes a thing that everyone does to promote their music. Because I think it'll never get stale. Really, I think it'll never get stale. That's my take on this one. Hit me up in a couple years when I'm ranting about how stale it is. And then we can talk. But for now, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan, and I support the medium. Really, truly, it's not just a simple like genre. It is in fact a medium. This format of video is more than just a one-off. This is huge, world-breaking news. And you've heard it here first. I think I'm on the front lines of something big. So yeah, I hope you appreciate it as much as I do. I have been going on and on for a while now, and I recognize that. And I'm not really that sorry. I'm really not. I actually, you know what I've done recently, which I think is a little embarrassing? I've started saying sorry like a Canadian. I think it has a little something to do with how much Northern Lion I watch, but it has a lot something to do with the fact that I think it sounds like slightly more polite for some reason. I don't know why, but when I hear someone say like sorry, it like in a distinctly, North American accent, it's like, okay guys, can we relax? But when it's like lumberjack out in the woods of Canada, he doesn't know what's going on in society. The guy is just living his life, and he goes, sorry, hey, sorry, mate. I'm like, I know they don't say mate. That was my addition. That was my personal addition. If you feel like saying mate and you're a Canadian, please do. It would make me very happy. But when I hear someone say that, it makes me like very pleased. So I've started doing it because I want to be pleased by hearing myself say it as well. And no, don't read into anything that I just said, because that was really weird and could be misconstrued into weird other things. You also may notice the video's been going on much longer than anyone could have ever imagined. I've realized I don't even care about video length, because the videos aren't going out to anyone anyway. And if I don't try new things, then there's no way that the YouTube algorithm will ever see me as a different guy, and they'll never push my videos out to different people. It will just be like the same thing over and over. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over. You know the quote. You know the quote. I don't have to say it again. You know the quote. You understand what I was going to say. Unless you didn't, in which case you have probably been living under a rock. Welcome to the real world. I hope you enjoyed your stay underneath that rock. If it is now available for rent, please actually send me the link, because I do need somewhere to stay right now. So please do send me that link. Otherwise, enjoy your time up here on the overworld, as they say. I've always been, as a kid, very, very confused as to why the Minecraft main dimension was called the overworld. Like, I didn't understand. I didn't realize what it meant. And for a long time, I thought it was just a cool name that they came up with because they were being silly. I don't know. Like, Notch was like, hey, let's find a silly name. And then they found a silly name. I obviously now have realized it's like the implication is that, the nether is the underworld, right? Like, I don't think I'd ever heard the term underworld used to describe, I don't think, like, when I first started playing Minecraft, I'd probably heard it, but I don't think I had quite connected the dots yet. Like, I didn't know what it meant entirely, which is a little embarrassing because I was like at an age where I should probably be able to understand simple concepts like that, but it didn't really click for me just yet. So, I was a little bit out of the loop, but now I've come around to it. I understand what it means. So no longer can kids on the playground make fun of me when I say something stupid about Minecraft, because I only say cool things about Minecraft now. I don't say stupid things. Never stupid things. Never once have I said a stupid thing. I tried to play Minecraft on King's new server. King made an SMP called the King SMP. For those of you who don't know, King is a famed game reviewer. I tried to play on it a little bit, and I died many, many, many times, mostly because I was only playing on my phone because it was on Bedrock, so I had the option to, and I was like out and about, and I was like, okay, I'm waiting in line at this thing. Why don't I just pull out my phone and play a little, Minecraft while I'm at it? And obviously, standing up in a line with other people around you in public, like, bad environment to play Minecraft, and I learned that very quickly as I died over and over again. Also didn't know how to use mobile controls. It was a whole thing. So eventually I gave up, but then I came back to it, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to play on PC. I'm actually going to be good. And then I remembered, I'm not good at Minecraft anyway. So I proceeded to die again for the millionth time. Lost all my stuff in the nether after getting, like, diamond tools and all that jazz. And I was like, you know what? I quit Minecraft forever. This is it. I'll probably come back to it at some point, but for now, I'll probably be on it tomorrow, to be honest with you. I think I probably, it won't be that long, especially because King is constantly pestering me to play with him. So, if you guys want to join the King SMP, hit up King on Discord and ask him for the link. I'm sure he'll be happy. He's begging for new players, bro. The guy is fiending. And he said he was going to make videos on it. Still haven't seen one of them. I haven't seen a single video on the King SMP. So somebody has been slacking off. If my eyes don't deceive me, someone has been slacking off. Sorry. You know what? I greatly apologize for that. I sincerely do. I'm sorry. Well, if you've enjoyed our little chat, feel free to drop a like and share any thoughts you may have in the comments down below. In any case, that's all I got for you today. Thank you so very much for your time. I've been Pat Dan. You've been great. And until next time, kick rocks, pal. Bye-bye.